Good afternoon or good morning, depending on where you're joining us from. Thanks for participating today. We have our very first webinar with Jessica Vanden Akker, who is Interim CEO of TriStar Gold. Many of you would recall Nick Appleyard, who's on a medical leave, so Jessica stepped in for a quarter or so. Before we get into the presentation, as always, this will contain forward-looking statements. If you'd like to know more about those, you can find them on the presentation on the website, which I believe should be shortly updated, if not already updated. And this session will contain Q&A, so feel free to put any questions you have in the comments box, and we'll get to those. I think the format's going to be about a 10 to 15-minute overview and introduction from Jessica, and then we'll get right into Q&A. With that out of the way, Jessica, thanks for joining us today. Nice to meet you.
Likewise, thanks for having me. It's exciting to be here. I joined the team obviously in 2021 as a board member and audit committee chair, but it's been quite the adventure getting into the day-to-day operations in this quarter. So it's fun to do this. So yeah, I guess just jumping into the presentation. So we're here to talk about TriStar Gold. As Deborah pointed out, this is my first presentation as for TriStar Gold. And disclaimers, again, echoing Deborah, we are going to be having forward-looking information, so please check out the disclaimers on our website and be aware of the cautionary language there. So maybe just laying out the stage, TriStar Gold, our asset is the Castelo de Sonhos project, and it's in the state of Pará in Brazil. The jurisdiction, when you're taking a mine from exploration to development to production, is obviously incredibly important in terms of navigating risks and uncertainties. And looking at Brazil, TriStar spent a lot of time with the local team, building the relationships, building the expertise, building local knowledge and experience with the state, federal, and municipal governments, as well as with the regulators, as well as with the local community. So we've actually found it to be quite a progressive, stable, and predictable jurisdiction in which to operate. And looking at other parties, we can see that other mines have come online. Brazil is actually quite a good jurisdiction and has been very stable for other companies as well to operate. And that's evidenced by the fact that over 3 mines came online last year alone. So here we go. There we are. So looking at the Castelo de Sonhos snapshot of our project, we have about 2.5 million ounces, 1.8 million in indicated and inferred. In 2021, we came out with our pre-feasibility, which was at a $1,550 gold, and that gave an NPV of about 400 million at the time. Looking at it at 2,000 gold, which the cost would need to be updated, is about 800 million, but it's a pretty economically compelling pre-feasibility study. The mining itself, we have 98% gold recovery. It doesn't really get better than that. In addition, it's environmentally clean. There's no sulfides, no nasties. It's a very simple, straightforward mining process. And there's significant upside. The resource is open on strike and at depth. Castelo de Sonhos stands for Castle of Dreams in Portuguese. It is a permitted multi-million ounce deposit. That is pretty unique to have the permit side and the environmental assessment fairly secure and supported by the regulators. In addition, we have obviously the strong economics in our pre-feasibility, but a project needs more than that these days to be successful. We have external validation from both Royal Gold and Oramet who've invested in our project. These aren't parties that participate in junior market speculation. They're really there because they see the potential for this project to be an operating mine one day. And on top of it, we have social license, we have environmental viability, and then that's been underpinned and validated by the LP permit that was granted in August 2024 by the regulators in Brazil. Digging a bit more into those economics of the pre-feasibility, there's 1.4 million ounces in the current reserves in the mine plan. That would be about an 11-year mine life. The first phase is Esperança South, which would have about 146,000 ounces per year for the first 6 years. The NPV, as we said, was about 400 million, and that's a 33% IRR. And at 2,000 gold, it would be 800 million. You know, that would come down if we updated it for current day costs, but the price of gold has significantly increased a lot more than the cost. So overall, the NPV would still increase significantly from 400 million. The CapEx number is based on 2021 numbers, so that would come up significantly as well, but we still think it would be in the area of 350 million. And there could be variability in that too, because that assumes owner managed fleet, but you could do a contracting fleet and then it would change up the numbers. And as well, the ASIC would obviously have to increase by inflation, say 10 to 30%, depending on what you're looking at there. The mine plan itself is 2 phases, hasn't changed. Esperanza South, as I said, would be the first phase. It would be years 1 to 6. And that's about 1.1 million ounces at 1.3 grams per ton for that first phase. And the second phase is the Esperanza Center and the Esperanza South or East, Esperanza Center and Esperanza East pits. So that would and that's where we would have the pits and the waste facilities. Talking about our team. So TriStar Gold, this is our board. This board brings technical expertise. We have Marcus and Mark Isto. Marcus Brewster was at Goldfields and ran the Domain mine, which was a paleoplacer mine, and he's very experienced at paleoplacer and can see that the TriStar Castelo de Sonhos project is incredibly similar, if not identical, to the mines at Tarkwa, and therefore can be comparable in terms of operations. Mark Isto was the former COO of Royal Gold. He has seen many projects. He has put mines into production. He's seen what mines get built around the world, and this is the only junior he's on the board of. From a regulatory compliance and capital markets perspective, we have Rod McKean and Eric Sonsherb. Rod's a retired lawyer who's very experienced in capital markets and knows how to keep us on side with the regulators as we move through different strategic initiatives. Eric as well was the former MD of Canaccord and head of research in gold. So he's seen many gold projects. And again, this is the only gold company he's on the board of. And all of their combined as well. Carlos Milena, we need to include him. He's our Brazilian lawyer. He's very well connected. He was the head of mining for Pinheiro Neto. So he knows a lot about how mining operates in Brazil. He's got the connections, the relationships as well that we get to leverage. And then of course, Scott, our CFO, and Nick, our CEO, they have brought this company from 200,000 ounces to 2.5 million ounces in less than 8 years. It's very impressive, and as well, it has an environmental permit. So the team has done a lot of heavy lifting to get this company to where it's at, and they have a lot of experience and insight and wealth of knowledge that they're bringing to the decisions that we're making for shareholders. Looking at the ESG side of things, building a mine these days, you can't just have the economics. You need to focus and make sure that your company and your project is an active member of the community in which it operates, the community that will be bearing the impacts. Our focus is on health, education, and environment. So we are looking to build a school this year in Esperanza 4. We do work as well on ensuring that our operations, whether it's exploration, development, or the future mine production, is as sustainable as possible and uses all of the applicable techniques and methods to keep everything as sustainable. We work with the local community as well on improving the local flora and fauna, whether it's through seedlings or different practices to make sure that the forests and the environment is well cared for. Additionally, we also have a digital inclusion program for the local Esperanza and Castelo de Sonhos towns to improve their computer literacy. It's really important that all mining companies, I think today, make sure that when they're building a mine, they're leaving a net positive legacy for the community in which they're operating. Sorry, find these. So our capital structure. We currently have a market cap of about 50 million. We have 289 million shares out. We just closed a financing for about 1.1 million, which gets us to fully diluted shares of 312. On the screen here, we're also looking at our share price over the past year. So it's been quite volatile over the past year. And I was going to use this as an opportunity to speak to some of the things that happened there. So as we can see, we had quite the increase in the summer of 2024. And that was because we received our LP permit, which is your license previa, which is essentially your environmental impact assessment report in Brazilian terms, which was great. That reflects an increase in our value. Unfortunately, in the fall, though, there was some additional scrutiny, and the public prosecutor's office in Brazil, which is a fourth branch of their government, did raise some public concerns about the process followed that SEMAS, our regulator, to issue the LP. These A very strong rebuttal was issued by CMAS in December of 2024. Essentially, a very strong technical defense that the process followed was very thorough, was very accurate, and thoughtfully prepared. That was echoed by our own letter defending the work we did. And I have to say, our in-country team is probably one of the strongest I've ever worked with, and our board has regularly talks about that. When they went through the LP process, this was very well done, very well thought out. They made a point of not just following what the law said or what the requirements were, but what best practices existed internationally, and really what the principles behind those laws, not just within 10 kilometers of impact, but who is impacted and how much are they impacted, regardless of what the law says. So I have a lot of confidence. I have all the confidence that this is going to be resolved, and this is just normal course scrutiny on mines, which is happening in all jurisdictions all over the world and is necessary. We want to make sure the right mines are being built in the right places in the right way and being done considerately and respectfully of the communities that they impact. So that letter was issued in December 2024. We had a little bit of an appreciation at that point, and really we've just been working on telling that story and some of the fundraising to continue to advance our initiatives, which we'll talk about more in a bit. Moving on, looking a bit more at the macro environment for juniors and gold. The price of gold has obviously increased significantly over the past 24 months, but we haven't seen quite the same traction for gold mining companies. It is picking up in the past 6 months, especially for producers at mid-tier, but we've still yet to see a meaningful impact and trickle down in pricing and valuations for the junior markets. So we think that there's a lot of appreciation yet to come based on that. Additionally, just having a look at what's happened historically for us in the past 2 years, or for the markets in the past 2 years, and comparing it to what has happened in previous downturns and upturns. And while our downturn might have felt a bit abrupt after COVID there, but it wasn't maybe as harsh or as abrupt as it has been in some past ones. But more importantly, looking at the bull market and the increase, we're comparing our increase, both the length of time, the duration, and the magnitude. We see, again, a lot of potential overall for the junior markets and the small cap for a lot of appreciation, more upside to come. So those are all positive catalysts that we think will unlock value for TriStar shareholders. So just to refresh our mineral reserves and resources, again, we have 1.4 million of reserves at an average grade of 1.1 grams per ton. And then we have about 1.8 million of resources, which is inclusive of the reserves there. We have a layout of obviously the Esperanza South, Center, and East pits. And this is our VPX Fabio. And as you can see, paleoplacer means nuggety. So you can see in this picture here with the outcrop that it's very nuggety little deposits of gold, which is partially why it's very easy to gold recoveries and it's easy to process. There isn't a lot of other chemicals in there, materials. Again, we think we know we are open at strike and at depth. With the right size exploration program, we think we can easily increase the size of our deposits. We've been working on identifying a number of exploration targets. The Esperanza South project has only been drilled to a depth of 100. If we increase that to 120, 140, those are some pretty simple, quick ways to increase the size of our resource and our deposit. So that is a quick overview. I think before we wrap up, I'll probably leave it on a what's next. As I said, TriStar has raised 1.1 million just recently. So we're focused on two main things. One, advancing the project. So on the ground, it's not enough to do any drilling at this point, but we are working with the team. We're looking at exploration targets. We're looking at feasibility drilling targets. We are still doing studies to continue to comply with our LP, including air quality monitoring, malaria studies. There's a variety of things we need to do. Desk work, we're looking at potentially updating our pre-fees or other forms of reporting that could provide more insights onto the asset. And as well, on the ESG side, making sure we're continuing to strengthen our relationships with the local community, with the governments, and the different levels of community and regulators. Number two, we're obviously going to be continuing to resolve any concerns from the public prosecutor. We'll continue to reach out and hopefully meet with them this year and provide a more amicable solution. At this point, their concerns have not been escalated. It's not a strong case, so we're not surprised it hasn't escalated, but it would be nice to close the loop and put to bed any lingering concerns at this point that SAMES hasn't addressed in their response. And number 3, advancing strategic initiatives. So we're obviously out there looking to figure out the best way to move this project forward, how to get the financing for it, maybe find a partner, considering M&A, and we're discussing with a number of parties for that. And the most recent financing buys us some more time and leverage to continue to have those important discussions. So that takes me to this point. Where would you like me to go now, Deb?
Well, I've got some questions and I see some audience questions, so I'll try and keep it somewhat thematic, or at least in a logical sequence. So Jessica, you mentioned that you've been a director with the company since 2021, and you gave us a bit of your background with the company, but can you tell us a bit about your experience outside of TriStar?
Sure. Yeah, so I am an accountant by background. I spent about 10 years auditing a bunch of junior mining companies. And so I spent a lot of time learning about the different types of transactions and regulatory processes there. And I've been CFO of a number of different juniors, different times. One of the more notable ones was Hive Blockchain, which, while not typical mining, was crypto mining, but learned a lot about regulatory compliance and navigating different deals and getting stuff done. So I've worked with a number of companies. I'm also on the board of Kenneland Minerals and GR Silver. And yeah, I'm happy to be able to help out in this context.
Okay, great. And I see a bunch of questions on the permitting, so I'm just thinking through how to do this in the most logical way. I guess I got to start with this one. One of the audience questions. I'm confused here about all the permitting being issued. So do we have all the permits in hand?
So, there's permitting for different activities. We currently have all the permits we need to continue to do drilling and exploration and the feasibility work. With regards to the LP, the license previa, that is our environmental impact assessment, which is the first permit you need to start building a mine. There's 2 more permits beyond that we would need to progress. And the first one is called the LI, and that is your construction permit. That naturally would be done sort of overlay with the feasibility or towards the end of the feasibility. And that would be done in order to, build the mine. And so you would want some more of the details that would come out of a feasibility study to file for that. And I believe that's about 6 to 8 months to get. And then the last license you need is the operation or license, which is just your typical, from my understanding, just your typical, like, everything's ready to go. We can turn it on the business now. We're ready to go and operate. So that the biggest one really is the LP, the environmental impact assessment. I hope that answers the question.
I think so. And just to be clear, the LP remains valid currently, correct?
Yes, yes. And in fact, if there was any escalation, it would continue to be valid unless there was either an injunction or a court case that we lost in a court case, but that would take probably 4 or 5 years to get to that point. So right now our LP is in good standing and the regulator is very supportive of us, and the local community is really looking to us to start advancing this project.
And does SEMAS have the final word in this?
Yes, they do. I mean, unless it goes to court, yes, SEMAS has the final word. And that was also exemplified. Bellow Sun just put out a press release a week or 2 ago. And they've had, that's not really a comparable case, we'll just say, but they've had their own regulatory issues, and the government has confirmed that SEMAS is in para is the final say in their case, and that reinforces that they have the final say in our case.
Was it the same prosecutor that went after them, or the same office?
One of the key differences is that one has, I believe, 10 prosecutors who've signed off on that. And that's another thing on ours, is that we only have 1 prosecutor, and they have not been able to get support from any other prosecutors in their concerns, which is another reason why it's not the strongest case. It's not well based there.
I assume, like in many other jurisdictions, this is a business unto itself.
Yes, yes. Again, I mean, taking a step back as someone who is believes in climate change and whatnot, the scrutiny for what mines are being built around the world is important. That is a process that needs to be respected, and we'll go through that process. But I have all the confidence in our team and the process we went through to make sure that this mine is going to be a net positive legacy for the community.
And are any of the concerns from the MPF valid in your view?
No.
Okay. And then final question on this point. I think I'm going to have to reread audience questions to make sure I haven't missed anything. But does any of this impact your ability to continue to advance the project at this time?
No. So at this point, again, on our strategic initiatives, we're looking for the right fit for getting the funding to be able to advance this project, right? And we could do that later half of the money comes in now. We could start work drills turning at the later half of this year.
Okay. And do we need any further things to address this with the government?
One of the things that might be a little bit unclear is the prosecutor is a branch of the government, but our relationships with the federal, municipal, and state level, especially the state of Para, is actually very strong. So the government wants to see, mines come online. They want to see the economics, the local economies benefit from this. So no, I don't think there is anything else we can address with them. We would just like to, for certainty purposes, essentially close the loop with the prosecutor and get them to maybe take down the recommendations, but ultimately they don't have a strong case. And if they choose not to escalate it, which if they did, it's not very strong. That's partly why we're waiting. So we're looking to hopefully close that loop just to provide all of us with more certainty. But again, the regulators and the state government and municipal government all are standing behind our project.
And another audience question, what are the next steps with the public prosecutor and how do you expect it to be resolved? I think you said a meeting.
Yeah, we'd like to try to make it, or we're trying to make an effort to meet with the individual to see if we can come to a better resolution that addresses their concerns more directly. Their concern, typically these prosecutors, their goal is to hold other branches of government and regulators accountable. They're not as concerned with us as a company. So part of the discussion will be helping them understand that the impact they're having by holding back this project or causing uncertainty on this project is really impacting the local community. It's impacting potential jobs and better development for the Castelo de Sonhos city town.
And what is use of proceeds from recent offering and how long is the runway before you need to finance again?
Yeah, I mean, it's only 1.1 million, so it's probably 6 months of runway. The use of proceeds is really continuing the G&A, continuing our strategic discussions, and continuing to reach out to the prosecutor to see if we can resolve this. It's ultimately allowing us to continue the on-the-ground work in Brazil with compliance with the LP, continuing to do the studies and some desk work. Like I said, we are looking into maybe see if we can update our pre-feasibility, might be one option, and giving us more time to continue these strategic discussions.
Okay, and then I had a couple additional questions of my own. If anyone from the audience has any more questions, feel free to put them in there. And I put something in the private chat to you, Jessica, if you don't mind checking that out. Can you remind us of the options TriStar is considering to advance CDS, and is there a preferred one at this time?
I mean, the answer is we're considering all the options, and the preferred one will be the one that we think makes the shareholders the biggest impact on their share price. So we are considering, a strategic investor or investors of some form of joint venture, maybe up to 20%. We're considering mergers and acquisitions or variations of that, and even considering potentially royalties on the project. So, the preferred ones really, you're looking at time, certainty, and what's going to work out best for the shareholders in the long term.
And you referenced we haven't really seen an uptick in interest in junior mining, which I've noticed as well.
Yeah.
What we have seen is some renewed interest in M&A and things like that. Have you seen any increased interest in terms of M&A transactions or new groups coming to the table?
I think so, yes, especially in the last few months. There's been more, as I think gold's gotten a little bit more love and attention. There's been more focus there. Development stage obviously is not, it's attractive to mine builders, but our project is not, you know, it's not quite 150,000 tons per year, or 150,000 ounces, I mean, per year. So it's a little bit on the smaller side. So some of the discussions are really around that and trying to find it. But yes, we are finding that there's a lot more discussions about consolidations and M&A right now in that space.
And is there any additional drilling expected in the next 6 months?
Unless we come, it's really entirely dependent on capital and funding that we have. So at this point, no, but if the right opportunity comes in and we can get the money to do so, yes.
Okay. Somebody was just asking if there will be a replay available. And yes, there will be a replay at this. You can find it on the Adelaide Capital YouTube channel. But Larry, I'll send you the link right after the call. And somebody was asking for a term sheet, which I will send as well. I believe that's it for audience questions. I think I had one more myself. Yeah, I guess not to get too personal or anything, Jessica, I'm sure a lot of investors know Nick personally, and it'd be great if you could provide an update on how he's doing.
Nick's doing well. He's through the thick of it and in rest and recovery mode. And so I am optimistic he will be back at the helm in April after Q1. Yeah, he's doing well. And so he appreciates everyone's concern and insights. It's been good.
Awesome. Well, I don't see any other questions there. Was there anything we didn't discuss today that you wanted to discuss?
I think that touches on all of it. Yeah, no, I'm good. Thank you.
Okay, great. And if anyone would like to have a call with Jessica, or if you have any questions that weren't answered, feel free to reach out to me and I will arrange either. And appreciate everyone's time and appreciate your time, Jessica. It's been great working with you the last little while.
Yes, thank you to your team, and thank you to everyone online. It's awesome to do my first webinar.
I hope everyone has a nice afternoon.
Take care.
Bye.